Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Your Mark on the World show. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe. I don't know who I am today. We're producing this episode for GoodCrowd.info, and I'm excited to have with us our extraordinary guest, Alon Goren, who is the founder and organizer and partner with Joseph Holm and others of the Crowd Invest Summit coming up in December in Los Angeles. Alon, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I always love being on.
Well, thank you. It's good to have you back, and I'm glad you know who you are. I'm glad you seem to recognize me, since I seem to be confused about who I am. So I'm glad there's one of us that is organized and put together and ready to go this morning. Alon, tell us about the summit coming up in December.
So the summit is something that Joseph, Darren, and I have been sort of threatening each other with for years. We see each other at every crowdfunding event, and every crowdfunding event is really, really great. We hang out with Devin. We hang out with all of our other friends who are sort of part of the crowdfunding world. But there doesn't seem to be very many sort of issuers, so companies and investors who show up to these events, because it's mostly a hangout spot for the industry, which is really, really fun, but a little bit frustrating when you're trying to build a platform. I know lots of our platform clients with my business invested in are always looking for investors and looking for startups or companies that want to raise money. They never would find them at the conferences. So we sort of decided to get together and have a conference that's specifically focused at bringing in the companies and the investors. And so that's what we put together. And it's we purposely made it mainstream. We purposely only focused it on equity, so that we're talking about real companies raising real money. And we've made it mainstream. So we brought Robert Herjavec, one of the sharks from Shark Tank, James Altucher, which is one of the top 10 most influential people on LinkedIn. If you know who he is, it's a big deal. If you don't know who he is, he's just a goofy guy with funny hair, but look him up. He's a really, really smart guy. So it's gonna be exciting. And of course, Devin is going to lead the social impact part of the event and talk about that, and have a great panel afterwards. And that's really what brought me into crowdfunding. So I'm probably most excited for that.
Well, Alon, you're great, and I'm excited to be a part of this conference in a small way. I think we need to just step back for a minute and have you recap crowdfunding regulation crowdfunding, the Jobs Act, Title III especially, and what this conference is really going to be talking about, because I think there are still a lot of people who don't understand the connection, or perhaps better, the disconnect between crowdfunding on Indiegogo and Kickstarter and the kind of crowdfunding you're talking about at the summit.
Yeah, so the way I like to think about it is we could start with Indiegogo and Kickstarter. When you use those sites, you're basically pre-selling a product or service. 99.9% of the time, somebody gives $5 and you get something in return. And that is basically, that's called e-commerce, right? You're buying and selling. So it's a really rock star way of doing e-commerce. For years, when an author like Devin would put out a book, it would go up on Amazon, and for 6 months before the book came out, people could pre-buy it. Then the day the book came out, they got it in the mail. Very, very similar when you're on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, right? People are pre-buying a product a lot of the time, and when the day comes, they get that product in the mail. The difference between, everyone feels like they've supported this company, they've helped them get their first product out there, so they feel really good about it. They feel a part of the movement that this company has created, right? Even if it's potato salad, it's still exciting, right? We like to look at the more impactful companies, but still, right? You feel like you're a part of something. You helped somebody get something off the ground, which is what every community has done for thousands of years all over the world, right? Somebody in your community has something going on, you support them and you help them do it. So that's what Kickstarter and Indiegogo do, and it's great. But what's sort of been missing for many years was the ability for us to own a piece of the companies that are being created on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. So you do support them, you get a product from them, but you have no ownership in the future of the company. So if that company does become Oculus, which raised money on Kickstarter, got bought by Facebook for I think $1 billion, none of those people who supported them at the beginning got anything other than their virtual reality headset. If they would have owned a piece of the company, they could have made a lot of money themselves. So I think Crowdfunder actually did a study that showed the amount of money. I don't remember what it was, but it was something like every person that gave them a couple $100 ended up with tens of thousands of dollars if they would have owned a piece of the company. Who knows what the terms would have been, who knows if that's what would have happened, but it's still an interesting case study. The idea now is that if Devin creates a company, and let's say your mark on the world or the GoodCrowd.info decides to crowdfund, right? I could give him $50, I give him $1,000 and actually own a piece of his company. And depending on the terms, maybe he'd give quarterly distributions and I'd get some mailbox money. Maybe he'd sell the company 5 years from now and I'd get, a 5 times return on my money. Or maybe he'll be like a lot of startups and go out of business. But either way, I'm helping him and I got something tangible. And guess what happens every week when he puts out a new podcast? I'm going to share it with everyone I know because I want him to be successful. So you get the best of both worlds. You get to own a piece of it, and if you're a company raising money, you get that army of people who actually are vested in making sure that you're successful. So it's a very exciting time, and you will lead it to the rules and laws. Without diving in too deep, we can take it if we want. It's just that the rules and laws have changed. Obama signed it into 2012. Finally, now it's happening. And we can raise money from companies by posting them on Facebook and Twitter. And that wasn't even legal before.
Yeah, this really is an exciting change. And I get excited about this for social entrepreneurs, especially because I think you've hit on this in so many different ways, but the nature of community building, right? People want to help entrepreneurs. There's an altruism that's part of the startup community. And when a social entrepreneur really taps deeply into that, I think there's an opportunity for them to be extra successful through crowdfunding, especially in ways that wouldn't appeal to alternative forms of capital. So your banker may not care about your social impact. Venture capitalists may or may not care, but there are people in your community who will care. Don't you see this as being a particularly appealing thing for social entrepreneurs?
Absolutely. So that's one of the main reasons why I got into this from the beginning. So I was a punk rocker growing up. Actually, right now, I should have said this at the beginning. Right now, I'm actually sitting in the Impact Hub in Santa Barbara. I'm speaking at a crowdfunding event tonight, and Impact Hub gave me a spot for the day here to spend some time and hang out. And talking about a impactful sort of opportunity, they actually did a crowdfunding campaign before they opened, and they pre-sold offices and desks here so that when they launched, they had the cash on hand to buy the desks and build the offices and do all that. And that kind of traction and drive actually ended up attracting the equity investors that invested more heavily into this space afterwards. So you could build a community, you can build something on a local scale. It doesn't have to be international. Just think that even locally, you find out about local businesses from Yelp or when your friend posts about it on Facebook. You don't have to actually pick up the phone and Devin say, hey, there's a new restaurant down the street. He just posts a picture from that new restaurant on Facebook, and think about how much more traction and how much more traffic that restaurant gets because of that social media. So that social media can help on a very granular level from a local standpoint, but also you think of things like a specific cause or a specific charity. My grandmother had Alzheimer's, and she lived in Israel, and it was very hard going back and forth and doing all that stuff. And Alzheimer's is something that affects people all over the world, but maybe for some people it's really important, for others it's not. But going to the internet and finding the actual people who it is important to is something that can be done now and can be reached in a way that couldn't before. So even if you're talking about a narrow focus, it could be local, it could be just the topic. You can reach everybody in the world that's interested in that topic online now. You could get them to contribute in different ways, whether it's equity or not. And that sort of evening of the playing field and that access that happens with crowdfunding is exactly why it exists today.
Yeah, it really is exciting. And you remind me that I covered the crowdfunding campaign for the Santa Barbara Impact Hub last year when they did that. So yeah, very cool stuff, and I appreciate your great passion for the impact that crowdfunding can have. I also think that crowdfunding has an inherent benefit in terms of capitalizing entrepreneurs that wouldn't otherwise be, especially women and minorities. It really is great stuff you're doing. Alana, I want to ask you a couple of personal questions while we've got you. I know our time's running short, but quickly, you've become really an iconic role model in the crowdfunding space. Who do you look up to as a role model?
Wow, that's a good one. So there's in the crowdfunding space. So in the crowdfunding space, it's really interesting because I heard somebody talk about venture capital the other day this way, and this is actually how I feel exactly about the crowdfunding space. So I'm going to steal this quote from a guy named Mark Mullen. He's actually speaking at our conference. He basically said, he said, venture capital is a very long-term play, but there's a lot of short-term players. And crowdfunding is exactly that. When we started, invested in, my company publicly launched in 2010, before the word crowdfunding existed, but we were doing it in, I think, towards the end of 2008 is when we started it. Now, going to the conferences and meeting the people since then, we both know that 9 out of 10 of those people are not here anymore. But there are certain ones who have just gone all in on this. And those are the people that get me really excited. It's guys like you who turn it into something social. Guys like Rodney Sampson as well, turning it into something really, really positive. And then there's the guys who are doing it right. And it may have taken time for them to find the specifics, but my partners, Darren and Joseph, they've been in it from the beginning and they've gone all in on this. And those are the guys in the space that I kind of take a step back and every once in a while, because it's been taken so long, think that I didn't think by 2012 they would have signed that act into law. When all of my friends were going to Washington to discuss this stuff, I was going, there's no chance the government is going to get off their butt and do this. I was laughing at them. Then when it did it, I had egg on my face. And then I said, wow, you guys are right. But their 30-day, 60-day, 90-day deadlines came and went. And it took until, this year for anything to really happen, right?
It took 4 years. 4 years for them to reach their 9-month deadline.
Yeah, so the people who stuck it are people who I think are amazing, because in that time, many times I looked at guys like Joseph and I said, why are we still in this industry? Why didn't we focus on something else? We wouldn't be waiting on this. We wouldn't be waiting on regulation. We would sort of blaze our own trail. But finally, it's happened, and it's paying off big for the people who stuck it. And it's exciting. So I sort of avoided your question a little bit, but really, that the people I look up to are the people who are still here, who have slogged through it, and really, they're passionate about it, because otherwise, we get jobs,
Yeah, there are a lot that we've seen come and go. Now, you could be doing anything. Why have you stuck with this? What drives you to stay in the crowdfunding space?
So there's two things that I always talk about. One, I really, 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 truly believe in the sort of ethos that you are a big part of, the evening of the playing field. The fact that my friend who lives in Oxnard can get just as much traction online as somebody who lives in New York City, right? That's special, because that means that no matter what color your skin is, your gender, your sexual orientation, whatever it is, if you can sell online, you can sell online. Nobody really cares at that point. And you don't even have to make that the front of your thing. You know, the way, from a very social standpoint, whether or not we want to believe it, there's prejudice, right? But we can avoid that completely online if we want to. We cannot put that face forward if you don't want to. I believe in being yourself and putting it forward, but if you want to sort of do something differently, you can. So that's the number one reason why I loved crowdfunding from the beginning, why we built social fundraising platforms before the word crowdfunding existed. That was really important to me. The next part is the thing I'm very passionate about is I write this word on the board in my office all the time, because it's a co-working space, and there's an incubator there, and there's a bunch of companies that we mentor and grow in our office. It's Hub 101 if anybody's in Southern California. But what I write on the board every time is the word disintermediation. And I go, this is the word of your life, right? Let's cut out the middleman. The banks don't have to own a piece of everything we do. I want to deal with Devin. I'm going to go directly to Devin. I don't need to pay a cut to a Wall Street banking firm. I don't need to give a cut to my bank. And that's what technology can do. We can cut out the middleman. And as time goes by, we're not just going to disrupt certain industries. We're going to completely destroy them, and we're going to build them from the ground up in a way that's better for the common person, better for the masses. And I don't mean to say, let's destroy everything and kill everyone's job, but I do mean to let's build something that's sustainable for everyone. Let's get rid of predatory type of activities. And at the end of the day, that the world would be a much better place if that happened. And it is a bummer for some of the people that work at some of the larger banks, maybe, and maybe that's why it took so long for crowdfunding to actually come to fruition, because there's a lot of people who not anytime soon, but whose industry will slowly go down as ours grows. And so I think that's the exciting part. You and I are passionate about finance, about impact. Other people might be passionate about another industry. But the key word for me is disintermediation. And I really believe that we can do that with crowdfunding. And that's why gone all in.
Yeah, that's great. One last question. We ask all of our guests for an impact hack, a tip that would help us to do more good in the world. What's your impact hack?
Impact hack, more good in the world. What I've found is being grateful and showing gratitude and being humble in the way you make introductions online. So it drives me nuts when somebody starts a message to me saying something like, I would be great at speaking at your event because I'm awesome, I'm this, I'm that, or whatever. And then that's the whole message. It's not, hey, Alon, how are you doing? I saw the event is happening. It's really wonderful. Like, people are very, what's the right term? Talk with Joseph about that. People are very entitled a lot. And, maybe that's because we're in a certain industry where a lot of people come from the finance world, and that's part of the persona. I've got to play it like I'm fake it till I make it kind of person. But that rubs people the wrong way. And a lot of times I don't even respond to those emails, especially on LinkedIn. You could get 10 of those a day sometimes. But when somebody goes, hey, I saw what you're doing, I really appreciate it, I love what you're doing, and then they ask nicely, you almost always respond to them and give them your time of day, because a good person is a good person. You want to have those people around you. When somebody acts entitled, you're not inclined to go out of your way for them. You know,
Right.
so don't expect, and ask people what you can do to help them, and that's probably the best I can give off the top of my head right now.
That's great. Now, Alon, before you go, tell people how they can find out more about the summit, how they can get tickets, where it will be held. Give us just a quick rundown of those summit details so that everyone knows before we go.
Yes, and I will actually do something right now as well. So go to crowdinvestsummit.com. You can check out all the speakers, all the information, and everything. It's going to be December 7th and 8th at the Los Angeles Convention Center. It's going to be the biggest equity-focused crowdfunding event ever, at least in the United States. There may be one in Israel from our crowd that might have a few more attendees than us, but we're going to try to beat them. You know, but really, they're awesome. But December 7th and 8th, LA Convention Center, is going to be a huge event. I'm actually going to create a discount code. On our website, you can get 20% off, but I'm going to create a discount code right now. So if you put the promo code GoodCrowd, you'll get 30% off. So I'm going to set that up right now. So if you guys wait about 30 seconds, it'll be working. So use the promo code GoodCrowd, 30% off, and I really appreciate the time. Devin, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for joining us on the show. We're thrilled. Thank you for including me in the conference. We really look forward to it and hope it'll be a huge success. We wish you every success in that great summit.
Thank you so much.
All righty, let's do some good.